Welcome to another episode of CAS Financial Outlook. I am your host, Cassandra Colin, and today we are going to be diving into 401ks. So we're going to try to keep it simple. I know that 401ks can be a little bit hard to navigate. We're going to cover the basics of what a 401k is and what you can do with it. So first things first are normal disclosures. And I am not a financial advisor, nor is this financial advice. This is just solely my outlook on this topic. And today's topic will be 401ks and IRAs. So there's actually two different kinds of 401ks. So the first thing is, what is a 401k? So a 401k is a retirement savings plan. It's basically a tax advantage that you all have available to you through an employer if they offer it to you. So any employee who signs up to a 401k, pretty much what they do is they take a percentage of your paycheck and it is transferred into the investment account, where here the investment account is your 401k. So the key takeaways that we have for this episode is 401k is basically a retirement account that employees have to contribute some of their income to. There are some employers that help match, like if you have a 1%, 2%, 3%, up to 5% matches, depending on where you work. And there is two different types of 401ks. You have your traditional 401k and then you have your Roth 401k. We're going to cover the difference between them, where 401k, it's employee contributions before taxes. So whatever is contributed to the account is pre-tax, and that means it reduces your taxable income, and your withdrawals are taxed. So anything going into the account is pre-taxed. Anything coming out of it is taxed. That's the traditional 401k. If you have the option to do a Roth 401k, this one is after taxed income investments. So anything that you invest into the account is basically after tax deductions from your paychecks, but anything that is contributed to the year is not a tax deduction compared to the 401ks, the traditional 401k at least. So this one, it is tax-free withdrawals. So the biggest difference between the traditional and the Roth is that the Roth, anything that grows in the account and is taken out of the account is not taxed. The traditional does get taxed if you do withdraw it. So that's the difference. Other thing too is pre-tax contributions to the 401k versus taxed income to the Roth 401k. So the traditional is pre-taxed, Roth is after tax. So that's the biggest difference between those. So again, employers can contribute to these if they offer it, take advantage of it, or else it's basically money that you're losing. So let's cover a little bit about the traditional 401k. So your employee contribution is going to be, again, from your gross income. So this means that any money that is for your paycheck, the contribution will first be added to the 401k, and then that's whenever your income is taxed from that remainder, depending on how much you're contributing. So your taxable income, again, is reduced based on which one you're contributing and how much you're contributing to. So the other question that we get asked is, how is it that these things grow? So again, it's an investment account. Your employer gives you different options on what you can invest into, and you have to go into the account and figure out what you're going to invest into. Because yes, it's an investment account, but if you don't do anything with that investment account, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to grow. So they usually have like a 7% or 10% ROI. So that's your return of investment. It really depends on how you manage your account. So obviously talk to somebody who's more familiar with the advantages of where to contribute. Most people say invest low. Some people say invest high. I will not tell you what to invest to and how much to invest. That's really depending on what you're most comfortable with and what you want to be allocating your money to. Now with the Roth contributions, again, are deducted after your taxed income. So this means that any contributions made to that Roth 401k is after you've received your paycheck with all the crazy deductions that we get, right? So This means that you cannot add it to your tax deductions, right? So whatever you contributed for that year, you can't add it as a deduction at the end of the year because it's already been deducted essentially because you're contributing after tax dollars. So that's the biggest caveat to the Roth 401k. The great thing about this one is anything that grows in the account and anything that you take out of the account is tax-free. Now note, if you make withdrawals before the retirement age, with IRS considers 59 and a half the retirement age. So if you do take anything out before then on either account, you do get penalized for that. And sometimes there is a fee for that. So just keep in mind that just keep in mind that the withdrawals, for them to be tax-free, have to be after your retirement age. Now, not all employers offer this option to do the Roth account, but if they do give you the option to do the Roth and the traditional 401k, you cannot invest $23,000 in each account. The max contribution to these accounts are $23,000, and this is as of 2024. So that's what the IRS is saying, that's how much you can contribute to these accounts. But that does not mean you can contribute $23,000 to each account. It has to be combined. So if you only have the option to do either or, try to max it out. Try to max out as much as you can. If you can't obviously do the 23K, then try to max out at least 1% of your income. So if you make 100K, whatever 1% of that is, contribute it to your 401k, whichever option they give you. If you have the option to do both, then definitely split it between both because, again, one has better tax advantages. Now, the next thing I want to cover is withdrawals. So, some people say that they use their 401k for investments. Yes, you can do that because obviously these are tax deferred accounts and it's very easy to rack up money there and then withdraw it. But again, going back to the fees, with both traditional and 401ks, you have to be 59 and a half in order to be able to pull that. If not, what you do is you get a penalty. On top of the penalty, there is a 10% early distribution tax added to whenever you withdraw it. So just keep that in mind, that if you are going to use this earlier, you get penalized. You get a 10% early distribution tax on top of any other taxes that you owe, by the way. This is not with the ones you already have normally on a yearly basis. Now, there isn't really any minimums that you have to be contributing to these accounts. It's really depending on how much you want to contribute. Whenever you leave your job, you have to be the one to roll it over to a different account. So let's say you had a first job, like my first job was working at Subway. I don't think we had a 401k there. But then after that, I had a 401k when I was working at Vacations to Go. Right there, I needed to make sure that I transferred my 401k to my current employer. Same thing with all my other jobs. I've had a Roth in the past, and I actually still have that account. So you can have multiple investment accounts open. Just keep in mind that the max contributions do change because you can't contribute, let's say, 23K to my Roth and traditional. It has to be based on a combination. And we did talk about the IRAs, and then there's your Roth IRAs. So those are completely different from your Roth 401ks. The contribution to those are a lot less. So with those, we will go into detail in a different podcast, not today, because today we're going to cover just what the 401k plans are and how do they earn money. That's the biggest thing that people want to know, is how do these things make money, right? If you're investing into these accounts, they should be giving you anywhere between, like, let's say, let's keep it conservative, right? Anywhere from 5% to a 10% investment back. Now, anything that you invest into your account, you have the choice to go and choose which stocks, bonds, funds, all of that stuff you want to invest into. Your employer should already give you options. For example, one of my old accounts was with JP Morgan, And whenever I went into my account, it was very easy to distribute where I wanted things to go. You can set it up by money, or you can set it up by percentages, and it can be automatic, or you can go in and change it all the time. Me personally, I would just set it on auto and leave it alone and let it do its thing, because the sooner you start investing, the more your compound interest will accumulate as you go. Now, obviously that always depends on where you're investing and how much you're investing. If you're only investing like $1 a month, then I don't know how quickly you'll be able to see any return on that. That's why it's a good idea to check your budgets on what your max accounts look like, and then from there check where you can allocate money to your investment accounts. We have a podcast specifically on this topic, on how you can budget your savings and your investments all together with your daily and monthly spendings. So how much you contribute, it does make a big difference. The more you add to it, the quicker you add to it, the more your money will grow, right? Obviously, that's if you don't remove the funds from the account. And if you're rolling it over, you should be able to consolidate a chunk of it. If you're moving it from one account to another constantly, then you're not giving it enough time to actually compound over time. So the benefit about compounding is that the returns are generated by the savings that you reinvest back into the account. So basically, whatever's going in there, it's just being reinvested and reinvested. So over a period of many years, you could see your $1 million retirement. And it's definitely doable. Do you have to be more aggressive on how much you're contributing? Probably so, right? And there's calculators online that allow you to plug in numbers on how much you need to be contributing for the year and how much you need to be contributing monthly. So let's do a quick example. So if I'm making, hypothetically, $90,000 for the year, and I want to be contributing 10% of my income to my retirement account, and let's just say my salary increases a minimum of 10%, because that means I would be earning an additional $9,000 as years go by, which is pretty reasonable. Now, let's say I'm 25 years old and I want to retire at 65, and let's say that my expected rate of return is 7%. Let's pretend like I have $0 in my 401k investment accounts, and I have 0 contributions from my employer. And if we do that example, it says that at 65 years old, I will be retiring with $5,009,809 with $53.36. Which is, I mean, 5 million sounds like a lot, right? But we don't know what inflation is going to look like. My total amount of contributions was $930,936.82. That's what my entire contribution is. Now, if I started at 25 years old, my first year, let's say I maxed it out at 9,000. Second year, I maxed it out at 9,000. But again, we have that 7% of investments. So when I turn 27, I have $20,493 in my account. At 28, I've invested, at this point it's 9, 18, 16, $16,000 into that account. But because of the 7% return of investment, I now have $35,000 in that account. And you really start to see a shift at 50 years old, right? So let's multiply 25 times 9,000. If we do 25 times 9,000, that means we have contributed $225,000 into the account. That's how much we've put into the account by age 50 if we've contributed $9,000 each year-ish, right? Depending on our pay increase, because we're maxing it out at 10% of our income. At this age, we have already over $1 million in our 401k. So I want you guys to recap that again. by age 50, we've roughly invested into our account $225,000, but because of our ROI, right, our 7% return of investment, we are already at over $1 million for our retirement funds. This is at age 50. Assuming you've been contributing a 10% each year from whatever income you have. And we said that it's $9,000 for us each year, which obviously is going to increase every single year after that. But from there, it skyrockets to $5,909,089 and 53. So in 14 years, this is kind of crazy to even picture, but in 14 years, your account went from 1.4 million to 5.9 million, whereas 25 to 50, it took way less time to almost triple in size in half the time. Because from years old to 50 years old, I only have 1.4 in that account. But from 50 years old up to 65 years old, it was only like 15 years. It skyrocketed from 1.4 to 5.9. And this is assuming that you've been contributing the same 10% of your income each year, which should be over $9,000 each year, which roughly turns out to be like $350 bi-weekly, which is not bad if you're making over 90K. Again, this is just to put things into perspective for you guys. If you have other 401ks that you need to roll over, do it. The more money you have in the accounts, as we see, compound interest does make a difference. So you have the option to withdraw the money, but I don't recommend that. And again, I'm not a financial advisor, but you get penalized and you get a 10% penalty fee on there too. So it doesn't really serve you if you have less than $1,000 in the account and you're getting penalized and taxes added onto that. So the other thing that you can do is roll it over to a IRA. So that's one thing that you can do through a brokerage account. And that's like your Betterment or your Vanguard or Fidelity, all of those accounts that allow you to roll over. They give you this, they pretty much support you, or they help you figure out how you can do it. I don't know how to do that because I have somebody else do that for me. So again, figure out what's best for you, either rolling it over to your new employer, rolling it over to an IRA, or withdrawing it, which again, is not the best option because you get fees for that. But if you don't have a 401k, get one. You definitely can also get a solo 401k. The solo 401k are for like your independent contractors. These are retirement accounts for the freelancers and those who are the 1099s. You can still have a 401k even though you don't have it through an employer, because again, everyone deserves access to these retirement accounts. And again, remember the max contributions for 2024 are $23,000. You don't have to max it out. Try to contribute as much as you can to it, because the more you invest over time, as we see because of these examples, make a big difference when it is that you go to retire. Or when you go and do the examples, put 59.5 on retirement age, or 60, honestly, right? Because it's 59.5. You can't really put that in the calculator, but put 60 years old and see what the difference is compared to 65. Or because we saw that the difference between retiring at 50 years old versus 65 years old was literally like 3 times in retirement. One had 1.4 and one had 5.9, which again is crazy to think about because 50 to 65 is not much of a difference. It's like 15 years. But anyways, thank you so much for tuning in on CAS Financial Outlook. This was Cassandra Colin with what you need to know about 401ks. And if you have any questions, definitely put them down below. I totally enjoyed going over the numbers. I'm a math major, and numbers definitely make sense to me when I put them into perspective and like use graphs. So hopefully it made sense, guys. It made sense to you guys who are listening to us in just audio. And if you want to look at the video on YouTube, you totally can. I'll put the screenshots of the examples that I was working on and the calculator that I was using. But other than that, don't forget to like, subscribe on our YouTube channel. We're at CAS Financial Outlook, and we are also on all podcast platforms. Definitely leave us a review, 5-star preferred, but you can put whatever it is that you want, because I definitely want genuine feedback.
And if there's any other topics that you would like for me to cover, please let me know. But other than that, you guys have a wonderful day. We will see you here next week.